But this weekend, we got a lot of big games on the docket for this weekend. In the SEC, we got number 8 LSU taking on number 3 Alabama. Alabama can clinch the SEC West if they win this weekend. Jordan, do they do it?
And I think Alabama does. LSU, people have knocked Alabama's offense recently. LSU, just as stagnant on defense or on offense at times. I think Alabama just has the defense. They had that big dramatic win against Tennessee. I think that's going to kind of carry them. That was their close call. I think they take care of LSU. And I think I had picked LSU to beat Florida a couple weeks ago. After seeing the way their offense has progressed since then, I just really don't think that LSU has the capability of knocking off a team like Alabama. But it'll be a good game. You can never count a team out when it's coached by Les Miles.
I picked LSU to win the SEC West at the beginning of the year, but right now the game's at Alabama, and I think that's the big difference. LSU's defense has only given up 12 points a game. Alabama's defense has given up 11-point games. Neither offense is dominant. The big difference is Mark Ingram. He's rushed for over 1,000 yards, 1,004 yards this season already. He's done a fantastic job. I think he's one of the leading candidates for the Heisman Trophy. So I'm going to pick Alabama. It's going to be close. I think 7 points or less in this game, but I just don't think LSU is consistent enough on offense to win the game.
And it was a close one last year. Alabama won in overtime, and I'm glad you mentioned the running game of Alabama because Alabama averages over 5 yards per carry. LSU right around 3. And also when you talk about LSU, you got to talk about the fact that their offense is bad, just like we're talking about. But LSU averages 104 less yards of offense per game than Alabama. And when you're going against this Alabama defense, you're going to have to fight for everything. You're going to have to earn everything. And I know the media is going to try to hype up, Saban's going back to play LSU again, blah, blah, blah. Well, just remember this. Saban won last year, and there's only one scholarship player on LSU who even played for Nick Saban, and that's defensive tackle Charles Alexander. And you know how many games he played? 2 for Nick Saban. So stop. Don't hype that up because it's not going to mean anything. Alabama's going to win this game, and they're going to go on to win the SEC West. And I also want to mention this about Alabama, too. They're holding their opponents to 29% conversion rate on third down. So they're not letting them get anything on third down either. I think that's going to be big, too, in this game. Now we go to the Big Ten. It's basically the game that's going to decide who's number 2 in the Big Ten as Ohio State takes on Penn State, this game in Happy Valley. And is it going to be happy for the Beavers or the Nittany Lions in Beaver Stadium?
I think Penn State's going to win this football game. Their balance on offense and defense is very – it's unbelievable. I mean, they've been the most dominant team in the Big Ten since they played Iowa. I mean, I know Iowa beat them, and that was a great win for the Hawkeyes, but Iowa's been kind of up and down. We've won some close games, and somehow we pulled out an 18-point win against Indiana after being down by 14. But I think the big difference in this game is quarterback play. Darrell Clark is arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. He might be the best, and I think he's the difference. Terrell Pryor's been shaky all year. He's the leading rusher for Ohio State. If Brandon Sane can't do anything on the ground for Ohio State, then I don't think they're going to be able to hang in for an entire 60 minutes against the Nittany Lions.
And I'm glad you mentioned the dominance of Penn State since the Iowa loss because Penn State has won their last 5 games by 20 points or more. They're just dominating right now, Jordan.
Absolutely, and Penn State has gone out, and, who cares if they did it against Illinois or Minnesota? They're going out and just beating these teams. It might be a close game for a little while. That's how a lot of Big Ten games go. When Darrell Clark has control of that offense, it runs like a well-oiled machine. The presence of Sean Lee back at linebacker, I know he was hurt for the Iowa game. Ever since he's come back, it's kind of revived that defense, and they have looked very good. Ever since, pretty much they played Iowa. Their defense looked good against Iowa for most of the game, and their offense has looked a lot better. And maybe that's just how good Iowa's defense is because we absolutely, except for one play, shut down their offensive spread HD attack. Since then, though, it's just been moving, and this would be, in my mind, a huge upset if Ohio State was able to go in to Happy Valley and win. It's a tough thing to do, and as you and I saw, Mike, I mean, that place is loud. It shakes the stadium, over, almost 110,000 people, and I don't think Penn State has another big game letdown for their fans. They're going to take care of business, and Joe Pa with another notch on his belt, another big game win for him.
And last year, this was the game of the year in the Big Ten, and Penn State played so clean in that game. No turnovers in that game, no penalties in that game. I think they're going to need another similar performance. I think this is going to be a close game. Another good defensive battle like it was last year. Last year, it was 6-3 going into the fourth quarter. But here's a stat for you. We talked about how the games are being played in Happy Valley. Since joining the Big Ten, Penn State has beat Ohio State 6 times. 5 of those times have come in Happy Valley. Going to be a 6th time this Saturday because I think Penn State gets the win and establishes themselves as the 2nd best team in the Big Ten. It helps Iowa out in the process by beating the Buckeyes. And just on a sad note, I wanted to talk about this. You know, Forrest Evashevski, one of the all-time coaching legends at the University of Iowa, died this past weekend. He was 91 years old, and I think this is a bad loss, you know, for the University of Iowa community because Evashevski, you could argue, maybe is the greatest coach in Iowa history. I know what Hayden Fry did was really miraculous, but you know, Evashevski came in here, took over an Iowa program that the 15 years prior, before his arrival, they only had 3 winning seasons. He took Iowa to 2 Rose Bowls, one in 1957, one in 1959, and he won both of them. The only Iowa coach to win a Rose Bowl. And you take a look at the span between 1952 and 1960. Iowa won a national championship in 1958 by the Football Writers Association of America, the only national championship Iowa's ever had. And then also in that time span, 5 top 10 finishes. So Forrest Evashevski retired a little early too. He probably could have had the job for the rest of his life if he wanted it, but he stepped down to become the athletic director here at the University of Iowa, and really he will be missed by the members of this community. And also, just going down memory lane, how great was it to have Lute Olson back at Kinnick Stadium this Saturday? We went and saw that press conference. What were your thoughts of, you know, what Lute Olson had to say?
I really liked what he had to say, and you could tell he really enjoyed being around this team because, you know, he took a long pauses in between what he was saying, I think, because he just had to remember everything. He didn't, you know, he wanted to say the right things because, you know, that was obviously probably the, I want to say the best Iowa basketball team ever,
say, yeah.
arguably. And, you know, they went to the Final Four. They mentioned the fact that they almost didn't even get into the tournament. And, you know, if you look at what Lute Olson did throughout the rest of his coaching career, national championship with Arizona, you know, it all goes back to Iowa. It kind of what you see with that Hayden Fry family tree of coaches that are out there doing their thing in college football in the country, making Iowa proud because it all roots back to the University of Iowa, and same with Lute Olson, and it's just a really pleasant man. That was a really nice press conference to go to.
Yeah, and you know, he left the Long Beach State team that lost 1 or 2 games the year before he came to Iowa, so everybody was calling him crazy for coming to Iowa from them because Iowa wasn't really that established with a basketball program. Yeah, it had some, you know, Final Fours in the 1950s, but not really a whole lot since then. And then he came here, built Iowa. Took him, you know, a few years to get Iowa really on the map, but, you know, took him to 5 NCAA tournaments, took him to a Final Four, then left here in 1983 to go have a massive rebuilding job at Arizona. But really, it's great to have him back in the team, you know, seeing guys like Ryan last year. It's great to see these old legends come back to Kinnick. You know, this year we've been blessed. We've had Hayden Fry and Lute Olson come back to Kinnick this year, so we've been pretty lucky.